Welcome to the Biohacking Standards, your one-stop podcast where we talk about spirituality, health, and wellness, and all things new. Stick around as we delve deep into innovations to support a better you.
Candice Barley is a former film and television actress and is the founder of Olistico Life, where she is educating women about the health impact of breast implants. After experiencing a mysterious and severe health decline over nearly 15 years that left her on the brink of death and desperately searching for answers, she discovered, through divine intervention, that her breast implants were contributing to her illness. Following her explant surgery and remarkable recovery, she dedicated her life to researching breast implant illness, inflammation, mitochondrial health, and holistic healing. Today, Candice is a trusted advocate for women's health, working alongside surgeons and functional medicine practitioners to help educate women about informed consent, recovery, and restoring vibrant health. Through her personal experience, research, and rapidly growing community, Candice has become a leading voice in the explant movement while emphasizing hope, empowerment, and practical solutions rather than fear. Candice brings a unique perspective that bridges personal transformation and compassionate advocacy, helping thousands of women reclaim their lives and become active participants in their own healing journeys. Let's welcome Candice Barley to the show. Imagine if you could go back to the early days of companies like Apple, Tesla, or SpaceX, not because of the products they were selling at the time, but because you believed in the future they were trying to build. That's what Igniton is all about. Yes, today we create premium wellness products designed to support cognition, longevity, and restorative sleep and skin. And they're all backed by carefully selected ingredients and supported by clinical research. But for us, they're only the beginning. At Igniton, we believe the future of human wellness will be shaped not only by chemistry, but by a deeper understanding of how living systems organize, communicate, and maintain coherence. We're investing in the science, the research, and the technologies that could one day expand how we think about recovery, performance, and healthy aging. Every bottle we ship today helps fund that journey. When you choose Igni Cognition, Igni Longevity, Igni REM Sleep, or Igni Peptide Eye Serum, you're not simply buying a supplement. You're joining a community that believes the next great frontier in wellness is still waiting to be discovered. Some companies sell products, others build the future. We intend to do both. Learn more about Igniton's mission, explore the science, and become part of the Igniton community at igniton.com by using code ASHLEY to save 15% on your first purchase. That's igniton.com and code ASHLEY for 15% off without a subscription. Igniton is building the future of quantum wellness. Igniton, born from light, backed by science. Candice Barley, so nice to see you again. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you as well.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here with us. Your story is very inspirational, and I'm excited to be working with you, even in our Igniton business that we work on. So excited to get started with that. But today I wanted to just have you be able to tell your story to our audience and hopefully spread the awareness that you seek to spread and help some people along the way. So why don't we start with how it all began? Like let's start with your symptoms and things that you were seeing and you were facing leading up to your realization.
Yeah. I had had symptoms off and on for 17 years, where I had been going to the doctor for chronic fatigue and feeling very just run down, depleted energy. And when I would go, they would run labs and say, your labs look fine, as everyone hears. Um, it's just because you have two kids under the age of 4. And that was just kind of always dismissed as far as the extreme fatigue that I was facing. So I just added more caffeine into my life because I was a young mother and just went on my way as best I could. And then I started developing more issues with hormones, with restless leg syndrome, all of these things before the age of 30. And I would go see my primary care with no resolution. It really wasn't until I was getting closer to 40 that I started experiencing symptoms that no one could ignore but they still couldn't give me any answers as to why my liver enzymes were doubling every 4 weeks. I had full
Wow.
body tremors. I was in bed for 18 hours a day. Literally had early stage liver failure. I had heart palpitations and difficulty breathing, and the list of symptoms just was growing and growing. And I was seeing countless specialists. I was seeing functional providers, and no one could figure out why, because I led a very healthy lifestyle at this point. We started looking at things like mold and all of the
Yeah.
other paths that you go down with no answers. And um, I was a film and television actress, and my mom had to move in with me to help take care of my youngest son. My older two sons had grown and moved out. And I just was bedridden with no answers. So that's what led to I can only describe as a divine experience and encounter, because modern medicine had no answers for me.
Right. And this went on for how many years? 10, 15 years?
17 years, but
17 years.
the time that I was actually bedridden was over the course of about a year, where
And
my health
so,
was declining so quickly that I was scheduled for a liver biopsy. I was wearing a heart monitor, all of these things in my early 40s, and it just didn't make any sense.
so you've described this to me as what came next was an audible kind of divine communication. Why don't you take us through that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was home by myself. My mom had taken my son to a soccer game, and I was so weak and laying in bed and just so broken at not being able to participate in life and having no answers and really feeling like I was probably dying. And I got up and moved to a chair that was in the corner of my room. This was in the middle of the day. And I sat in that chair and I closed my eyes, and I can only describe it as my soul cried out. It was something that came from so deep within me. And with my eyes closed, I just said, "What is wrong with me?" And at that moment, I got an answer. And I wasn't asking for an answer. It was just this desperate breaking point for me. And I heard two words in my right ear, a male voice, masculine voice, audibly in my right ear say, "breast implants."
Wow.
And I, first of all, had never heard a voice in my life audibly like that. You have, intuitive downloads or things where you're like, oh, I get a sense of I'm supposed to do this, or an idea. This was an audible voice. And I was in such a state of shock for two reasons. One, obviously, because I had heard an audible voice. And two, because I had never, ever considered my breast implants. And no specialist, no functional provider, no clinician had ever suggested that my breast implants could be causing this systemic reaction in my body. And so after I calmed down and opened my eyes, I was scared to even open my eyes because I didn't know if there was going to be a being there. And
Right.
so after I was like, okay, my laptop was leaning up against the chair. I got my laptop and I Googled, "Can breast implants make you sick?" And I found thousands and thousands of stories just like mine. And I was going through everything. Can breast implants affect your liver? Can breast implants cause full body tremors? I was going through everything and finding other stories just like mine. And then that set me on my path to first finding someone who properly removed implants, because there's a very specific way that it has to be done. And I had a renewed sense of hope. Like, maybe this is the answer. It has to be. No one else knows. I literally had to have a divine communication to come to this realization, and it 100% was my root cause.
And also, I think you've shared with me too, that there was no tears or leakages or anything in your breast implants, right?
None. They were totally intact. The set that I had at that time was only 7 years old. It was the newest model, if you will, which is called a cohesive gel gummy bear implant. Um, and I had had several sets of implants prior to that, and they were saline, and I had ruptures, which is very common, and that's just saline. But what I now know, and what I educate on, and what I am in the process of writing clinical papers on and working with incredible scientists and PhDs and developing other testing for, is that all breast implants constantly, from the moment you put them in, one, create a foreign body response reaction. So your immune system is always triggered. And two, the reason it is different than any other implanted device is because the implant shell is made of silicone. It is a vinyl cured elastomer polymer, and that is semi-permeable. And so those silicone particles release 24/7 something called siloxanes, which are these just little chemical particles that are highly triggering to your immune system. And your system silicone is not biodegradable, so it never breaks down in your body. So it can take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to reach a level of systemic toxicity to the point that your entire system starts to shut down. And there's a lot of different reasons. It has a lot to do with complete mitochondrial damage and depletion. It has to do with the high levels of the chemical components of the implant shell. Totally intact implants. We're not talking about a rupture here. That's a whole nother level of systemic burden. And then the foreign body response. So that's why when I started experiencing symptoms of fatigue at 24 years old, it was within 6 months of getting my implants. And that is from the foreign body response. That is your immune system saying, hey, we're having to work overtime here. And if you aren't immediately adding things into your life that are going to help support, one, your immune system in that way, and two, help support moving out those siloxanes, then you will eventually end up most likely the way I did. But it depends on your genetics. It might take you 17 years like it took me. It might take you 30 years. I've worked now with thousands of women, and I've attended surgery with girls as young as 24 years old who have only had implants for a year and they're already bedridden. So it really
Wow.
just depends on your body, your environmental toxic load at the time, any pre-existing conditions. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle that are not disclosed to women at the time that they make this decision.
So that's a good transition. What are you, tell the audience now, what is your work? What are you doing every day, and what are your missions?
Yes, so I have a company called Olistico Life, and I share a lot through social media, educational resources, explaining the biological response that's happening in the body, and then also sharing different protocols, healing modalities, supplements that you can use to help support your body, to help with the systemic toxicity, or helping women find proper explant surgeons, understanding how that works, and then how to support your body after explant surgery. And then I'm also working with doctors, surgeons who perform explant, and just even more recently, plasmologists. We are working on looking at ways to create tests beforehand before women decide whether or not to get implants so they can really get a clear picture on how their body's going to respond to that. And then I also share other options for breasts volume, because not everyone, there's a lot of different components as to why women decide to get breast implants. And I believe in meeting women where they are, and having no judgment on that. And there are also a lot of women who are doing this because they had cancer and are,
Yeah.
oftentimes rushed into getting breast implants, again, without true informed consent, because not only do they have a very serious pre-existing condition, but they have a very compromised immune system if they've gone through the traditional cancer protocols. So that those are things that should be discussed in full with women before they get implants post mastectomy. And also the other options for reconstruction, which just aren't. It's just you're pretty much told, here, we're going to immediately put in an expander and then put in breast implants, and you'll be back to having breasts within a few months of your surgery. So I really, really focus on informed consent, because I believe that when women and uh, humans in general have all of the information or more information, they are able to make informed choices and also really check in with themselves. That's what I tell women, is listen to your gut. I have so many who have reached out and said, I'm experiencing this and that, and my doctor says it can't be this, but I have this feeling. And I'm like, that's your answer right there. You already know, and you are wanting someone else to confirm what you already know. And more than anything, really getting women to be in tune with their body, to be in tune with that inner voice, is at the heart of what I'm doing.
Now that's and thank you for doing what you're doing. I think it's wonderful that you're taking this on. I know it's not easy. You got to share your personal stories. You got to fight the established medical community all along the path. What do at its largest scope? What do you hear to help women understand?
I'm here to help them understand that, one, um, you are not a prisoner in this body. I feel like I work with so many women who are struggling with such severe health issues, not just from implants, because a lot of women will find my page based on other information that I've shared, because what breast implant illness is inflammation. So, inflammation being the root of most all illness, everyone, unfortunately, in some way is battling inflammation just because of the environment and the world that we live in now. And
Yeah.
so I want women to know that they have the ability to restore their health and to be an advocate for their own health, and not feel uh, just powerless when going to their primary care doctor and they tell them either one, your labs are fine, or two, when they go to them with what they feel is wrong, they oftentimes are gaslit and told that they need, um, antidepressants or anxiety medications. And I believe that the more that I can educate and help women understand how this incredible body works, the more that they can, one, restore their own health. But two, when you help women, you help everybody, because women take care of everybody.
That's
They're the
right.
mothers, they're the daughters, they're the sisters, I take care of everybody in my family, and my mom takes care of me. And it was my grandmother. It's always the women, and that's what I love so much, is that I know by serving women, I serve everyone.
No, that's fantastic. I wonder if and that kind of speaks into your perspective that you've shared with me as well, where you say you'd like to really approach this with this conversation with women from a place of love and support and making sure you're avoiding the fear and judgment. And why is that distinction so important to you?
Yes, because I feel like, women have made the decision to get breast implants for a lot of different reasons, but a core reason is because of it came from a place of feeling not enough, from being judged. My story is I was um, eh, very bullied in middle school and high school for not being developed like the other girls. And then after I um, breastfed my two children, I was left with nothing again. And that unresolved trauma and insecurities came back. And I wasn't even aware of them. I just knew that I felt like maybe this was going to cause an issue in my marriage. And even though my husband said, no, you don't need to do this, it was something deep in me that had never been resolved. So I work with women who are Playboy bunnies and have millions and millions of followers and have very large implants. And they are so sick and they write me and they are like children who say, I don't know what to do. My whole livelihood is built upon this. And when it's very easy to see someone like that and have judgments towards them, but I get to see behind the veil and I see the broken girl behind that who is extremely sick, but doesn't, is more afraid of not being valued in the world because of what she's built based on that aesthetic profile. And you can see where all of that comes from what we have been the social media and even before that of women feeling like the most important thing that they have to offer is their physical appearance and how womanly they are in compared to you know what they see portrayed as what is considered attractive. So I understand that that is where most all women are coming from in that way. And so then to say you have implants, these are and saying the I see a lot in the breast implant illness space, and it comes also from a place of good intent, but going the extreme other way where there is a negative, calling implants toxic and um, just really creating fear around having implants. And when someone is struggling with their health and they realize it's from their implants, and then you make them fearful, they feel like they are absolutely trapped and they can't get their implants out fast enough. And that is not conducive to healing. What I tell women is once you realize for you that implants are your root cause, that is the first step in healing. You are already well on your way in your healing journey, and that should be exciting and that should give you peace. And just knowing that can actually help to calm down the symptoms that women are experiencing because the anxiety of the not knowing of what is wrong with you
Right.
takes that burden off. And so, but if you're coming from the direction of saying these are, going through all the negative points of it, all you're doing is building that fear and you could increase those symptoms for someone who's already struggling. So I am not about that. And I also am understanding that many women, I work with a lot of women in the health and wellness space, and they have implants and they are concerned about being judged for having those and struggle with having implants and telling people not to drink out of plastic and all these things. But what I found is a lot of those women are doing things to support their body in ways that they're not struggling with a lot of symptoms. So if I can share that information and help women who do have implants who are not wanting to remove them, who are not ready, whether financially, emotionally, spiritually, or physically, then I'm here to support them in that. And that's where I'm sharing a lot of the ways that you can, again, help with your mitochondria, help with lowering inflammation, help with the brain fog. That's why I resonated so much with Igniton's products, is because it can really help this demographic of women.
Yeah, that's and thank you for that. Let's go back to when you got your breast implants removed. How quickly did life change for the positive for you?
Yeah. I within 4 weeks, so I was scheduled for a liver biopsy, and I went to my doctor and asked, can we please hold off? I think I know what's going on. And so I had my labs drawn the day before my explant surgery, and my liver enzymes had tripled from the previous 4 weeks. So I had my surgery, a difficult time recovering and recouping from the anesthesia because my liver was in such a compromised state. And of course, you process anesthesia and all of the pain meds through your liver. So that was difficult. But within 4 weeks, when I had my second or my next um, round of labs to look at my liver enzymes and everything else that was starting to go awry, my liver enzymes had reduced by half. They were still extremely elevated, but they had gone down for the first time. So the doctors were very surprised, didn't think it could have anything to do with removing my implants. And I was scheduled for another 4 weeks to come back and get my labs done again. And at 8 weeks post explant, my liver enzymes had returned to normal.
Well,
My white blood cell count had gone up because it was extremely low. Everything had started to resolve on my labs for the first time in over 2 years of where it had started to dramatically decline. Um, my full body tremors went from happening every day to happening every few days to happening once a week, until around 3 or 4 months, I no longer had full body tremors. My restless legs syndrome that I had had for like 13 years at that point, within about 4 to 6 months was gone. And I never, ever knew. I had had it for so long that I never knew that it was connected to my implants. There was all these different things that I had just gotten used to living with that began to resolve. And through this started, I had severe gut problems. And that is a very common issue with implants. And there is a biological response of what's happening in the gut. And then that actually creates, when you have inflammation in the gut, that directly communicates back to the response to the implants. So it increases the body's reaction to a foreign object. And so it's this two-way street going between the implant and the gut. And that my gut problems started to resolve, but there was still things that I was realizing I've got to deep dive on each of these systems, because what I now share with women is, while removing breast implants when you're symptomatic is the first and most important step, there are still other action items that you have to do to address all of the layers of inflammation that your body has endured for years. So it's like a house fire, your body being the house and your implants are a fire for some people. And just because you put out the fire by removing the implants doesn't mean there's not still remaining fire damage. So you have to go back and address the endocrine system, the gut, the liver, and really work on restoring those areas. And so I focused on liver support first. And as I started to discover all of these different healing and holistic modalities, and I started to feel better than I had in years, I became very just driven to find out, how good could I really feel? And that's
mm,
been journey that I've been on for the last 7 to 8 years since my explant is how good can I feel? What is possible? Because my baseline had gotten so low of what, normal was. And that's what's been really exciting. And that's again why I'm so passionate about sharing all of the things that I do, because I actually feel better than I did at 24 years old when I got implants. I have more energy than I did when I had two little kids running around and I was only 25 years old. And I'm almost 50. So it's really been an exciting time in my life. And I want everyone to experience and know what it feels like to have vibrant health.
That's fantastic. And again, I am just touched by your story every time I hear it. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I know there's people out there listening right now who are thinking to themselves, wow, could this be me? And
Yeah.
um, I wonder, you talked a little bit about there's a specific protocol perhaps around how to remove the implants. Do you want to
Yes.
maybe share something like that in case anybody's wondering, like, hey, what do I do? What should I be looking for in a physician?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of times women will go back to the surgeon who placed their breast implant. And I don't generally recommend that because um, if they're still placing breast implants, they are not generally wanting to admit that maybe the symptoms you're experiencing are from your implants. So you might not get the support you need there. There are dedicated explant surgeons who used to place breast implants and then started having more women coming in asking if they could remove their implants and the scar capsule around them. And they saw women improving their health and symptoms improving so dramatically that they completely switched their practice to only removing implants and felt that they no longer could place implants based on their desire to only um, help help in
Right.
women's health.
Do no harm,
So
right?
do no harm. Exactly. So the reason implants have to be removed a specific way is your body in that foreign body response forms a scar capsule around the implant to wall it off from the rest of your body. And within that scar capsule, up to 40% of the time, there can be biofilms, which harbor bacteria, fungus, and just other microbial particles that can, if that scar capsule is cut open, be released systemically at the time of explant. So implants are removed like a tumor, essentially. With that scar capsule intact, they try their best to remove it without any rips or tears. Also, in 100% of scar capsules, silicone particles are found in that tissue.
Wow.
So if you open that scar capsule, you remove the implant, and you leave the scar capsule behind, you are now created a constant systemic release of even more of those silicone particles and siloxanes and potentially biofilms. And so it does happen where women have just removed the implant and left the scar capsule behind, and they either one, were not symptomatic before and become symptomatic, or two, their symptoms become extremely so much worse, so much worse. So we never in the explant world recommend removing the implant without also removing the scar capsule. And so I actually wrote a book called the Explant Book that is a step-by-step guide to navigating explant surgery, but it also has consultation forms with questions to ask a surgeon and then the answers that they should be giving you. And that helps you determine whether or not they are a proper choice for explant.
So you've mentioned to me as well, and you even referred to it earlier, that it's not just women, it's girls, that are going through this process, and I guess
Oh,
you're
yes,
referring to
young as 18.
the age, right?
Yep.
Why do you think women may be getting sick faster today from implants than they did before?
Yes, this is a very real and noticeable concern. Women have been talking about having issues with implants for many years. A lot of times it was in reference to the older silicone implants, and then they removed those from the market and then reintroduced the newer silicone implants, which, by the way, I do want to mention the cohesive gel implants that are silicone. When they rupture, and oftentimes it's a silent rupture because they're cohesive initially, your body breaks down that silicone over time. So if you don't know you have a rupture, that silicone does liquefy like old silicone, and it becomes like a honey, and then that can get in the lymph nodes and even spread throughout the body. So it's important to know that the new cohesive gel silicone over time with a rupture does turn into more of that liquefied silicone. But the reason we are seeing more women struggling with symptoms from their implants, even young girls who get them and have these issues so early on, is because of the amount of environmental exposures that we have. Even, if you live a very healthy lifestyle, it is impossible to completely avoid all glyphosates, the things that are in the air, travel, the chemicals, the spike proteins, and, things from COVID. That was another big one, is a lot of women who got long COVID, that was kind of the tipping point for them. Our bodies are now at a compromised ability to even detox and process mold. We've never had as many people have issues with mold as they do now. And that, again, is just a sign of the compromised immune system that so many have from our environment. Microplastics everywhere, all of these things are a constant bombardment on our immune system. So when the implant is in place, and because it's such a large device, two large devices, it's different than just a dental implant or even a hip implant, which is either metal alloys or ceramic, and those are a lot more biocompatible. But also any of the wear or the metals or anything like that stay local to the joint. So this is where the difference is, again, also with the implants. And they're not things that can't be broken down like silicone. So the reason that we see all of that is just the compromised immune system. And I call breast implants, and it's an important visual for women to understand why it's so important to support your immune system, is they all become the elephant in the room of your immune system. So your immune system is always focused on the implants first, and then everything else comes second, third, fourth, way down the list.
It's interesting because I've got, and I haven't even shared this with you yet, but I've got like 2 plates in my head here and like 8 screws holding my face back together. So I've got
Oh my
implants
gosh.
that are titanium. And when I went through, I had a really severe COVID issue and lost my taste and smell for 2 years. I had severe, what I call tinnitus, but it really wasn't even, it was just this weird thing going on with my hearing and sensitivity to sound. And then I had vertigo, couldn't walk on certain days. It was really
Goodness.
terrible. And the doctors, they had no idea what was going on. And I turned to more holistic medicine, which is kind of my approach in general. And I found an energy healer who worked with me, and his diagnosis, for lack of a better word, was that my immune system was still working on my implants, and it
Mhm.
was causing me, more trouble dealing with the COVID situation that I was dealing with.
Yep. It's absolutely true. I have my 28-year-old son, um, fracture, completely uh, fractured and obliterated his femur, and he has metal plates and screws and all that in his leg and his knee, and his health declined after that. And we're struggling with and working through a lot of health issues because he works in a business where he's exposed to other chemicals, and you just are at a compromised ability to process those things when you have a foreign body. But metals and things like that are a lot easier. I shouldn't say easier, but the body has a better ability to
Right.
overcome them. But it's not a constant release of metal alloys. Like there's a threshold versus the implant where it just actually increases over time. And the degradation. That's why implants should only ever be in for 8 to 10 years, because at the 8 to 10 year mark, the rupture rate goes up by 0.5% a year because the shell integrity is becoming more and more compromised. It's degrading. And if something is degrading inside your body, where is it going? It is creating higher and higher levels of um, systemic burden, essentially. More. That's why it's liver support is so important. And there's something else I was going to mention that a lot of times is overlooked with implants. It'll come to me. It'll
That's
come to
okay.
me.
We'll come back to it. So if I know part of your work is working with women who may want to try to, I mean, especially in the biohacking community and healthcare providers, maybe they want to try to keep their implants,
Yeah.
right? And they don't necessarily want to go all the way toward getting them removed. Um, for those women who are maybe in the audience and are thinking about that, what should they be proactively doing if they're choosing to keep their implants?
Yes, and that reminded me of exactly what I wanted to point out. So, and this is controversial, but it shouldn't be. Um, in the biohacking and longevity and just overall health space, everyone knows the importance of getting in a sauna. And the issue is, and that I have seen through working with so many women, attending surgeries with women who are regularly getting in the sauna and doing hot barrel sauna, is that increases the degradation of the implant shell. So that can actually make you more symptomatic. It can create things like full body rashes
Wow.
and make you feel significantly more tired. Um, the other thing is with implants, it oftentimes is blocking it is blocking your lymph nodes here. So it's important to be doing all types of lymphatic massage daily, your own lymphatic, through dry brushing and through just, again, massage. Um, a lot of women, I shouldn't say a lot, I should say a majority of women lose their ability to sweat with implants because of that blocking of the lymphatic under the arms. So getting in, if you really want to do heat therapy, utilizing like infrared at a lower setting and for a shorter duration. I do not recommend high heat for long periods. I do not recommend hot yoga if you are wanting to minimize the likelihood of developing symptoms. And then, but overall energy frequency, very, very good for getting your body into a parasympathetic state because it tends to run in a sympathetic because of the foreign body response. So PEMF, red light therapy, microcirculation devices are very helpful. And then, of course, leading a low inflammatory lifestyle through your diet, making sure you have air filters, filtered water, putting minerals in your water. And then what I have really focused on as far as a simplified biohacking protocol, which is fundamental, foundational, is one with gut health, starting with making sure you're absorbing, supporting butyrates in your gut, taking a pre, post, and probiotic, ideally some type of spore biotic. Proteolytic enzymes are very good because it helps with those biofilms that are accumulating potentially around the implant. And then supporting your mitochondria is key. The response from the implants depletes NAD levels, depletes mitochondria. You have an ongoing cell danger response. So replenishing NAD through NMN and NR, taking ubiquinol is extremely important to help with mitophagy and helping your mitochondria. I love utilizing blue spirulina because it helps with biogenesis of mitochondria, supporting mitochondria. And of course, you get the high amounts of SOD and everything that's important because oxidative stress is your big issue with implants. And then chlorella daily because it has been shown in tests for wastewater, not in women's bodies, but we know that siloxanes bind to up to 96%, or chlorella binds up to 96% of siloxanes in wastewater. And so siloxanes is your main issue systemically. It's been shown in women's bodies 5 to 10 years after explant. So taking chlorella daily, I feel, is very important. Plus, it's just the most nutrient-dense food on earth. So you're helping to put your body in more of an alkaline state. You're getting all of your amino acids and high in iron, and it's just amazing. So those are kind of my fundamentals. Phospholipids, very important. I like krill oil with astaxanthin for protecting the cellular membrane of your mitochondria. So mitochondria is key. Anything that is going to support that is what you want to be addressing because that is the direct um, issue that is the cyclical issue with the implants. Yes, it's inflammation. Yes, it's all of these things, but fundamentally it's affecting your mitochondria. Once that depletes, everything else does as well. So running all of those because again, this is the other thing that I feel should be shared with women, especially when you are in the holistic and longevity mindset and world, is that when you get breast implants, you are biologically aging 5 to 10 times faster than someone who does not have implants. That is measurable. We know that.
Wow.
So, even utilizing testing, epigenetic testing, there's ones that you can do at home, can help you to get a baseline. And then you can start adding these protocols, these superfoods. These are super algae and very basic things to measure and see how that's being able to help inflammaging, which is the direct correlation with your biological age.
Wow. Seems like a big price to pay to have large breasts, right? Like,
Yes, yeah, it can be. So it's just, again, I feel like if you have all of the information, you can look at your life and say, okay, what is it that I want to do? What do I have the bandwidth for? What is important to me? And for a lot of women, that is worth it to them. And so I want them to have that information so they can do that. And then more than anything is I don't want women to chase symptoms for 17, 20, 30 years, like many of the women that I've worked with,
right.
and have no idea that their breast implants are creating this biological response and that the answer for them can be just simply removing their implants and then restoring their health step by step through working through the other systems. But I didn't know that. And it literally took, you know, a higher power having to intervene because that had never, ever once been disclosed to me in all the times that I had surgeries, in every single doctor that I saw where I put down in my medical history that I had breast implants. No one ever said, hey, did any of these symptoms start after you got breast implants, after you had an implant exchange? I put down every time I got a new set of implants. No one ever asked. And had they asked, and had I put together a timeline, which I have at the beginning of my book is a symptom timeline. When did you get your implants? When did you have symptoms? And go through all of those, even pre-existing. Was it manageable? When did it become unmanageable? If I had built that timeline, I would have known immediately what my root cause was. And that's what I want women to know. And again, you can go through every single possibility, mold, Lyme, I went down all of those paths and none of them led me to healing. So that's why I want women to know that if you've gone down all of those paths with no resolution of your health, it's time to look at your implants.
Now, as you were healing, post explant, and you're starting to feel better and you're starting to, your labs are going in the right direction. I wonder, how did you deal with the emotional situation of now not having the breasts that you had had
Right.
before? Like, talk to us about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Initially, I because I was felt like I was at death's door, that wasn't an issue for me immediately. And because I had large implants and I had no breast tissue, that is a big change to go from having basically a D to a double A. And something that can occur with explant when you have very little breast tissue are adhesions. And I got adhesions where the back of my breasts attached to my chest wall. Because again, this is something else that is never disclosed to women when they get implants. They're just told, we're going to place your breast implants submuscularly. What that means is they actually dissect your pectoral muscle off of your chest wall, forever altering your muscular anatomy. So that is why women struggle with neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, is not from the weight of the implants. It is from the dissection of the pectoral muscle. And as time goes on, when you don't use a muscle, it atrophies. So my pectoral muscle after 17 years was atrophied all the way up to my second rib. So my pectoral only comes to about here. So that, not having my pec muscle and then removing the scar capsule of the implant, causes the breast to adhere to the chest wall, which can be very uncomfortable. So then I had to get adhesion releases. And eventually, almost 2 years after my explant, when the aesthetic part did start to um, bother me, basically, I decided to do a fat transfer, which is an option for reconstruction using your own fat. And I've never once felt like I wanted to have big breasts. Again, I never even really wanted big breasts. I just wanted to have something. And this is another thing that happens with women who get breast implants, is that I don't know the exact number, but it is high, of women who wake up with implants much larger than what they asked for. And the doctor says, well, the other ones weren't fitting right, or we know that a lot of women decide they want bigger implants later. And so my implants were much larger than I ever wanted. So I always covered up. And a lot of women have the same story, is like they're always wearing sports bras and wearing sweaters and sweatshirts because this is not what you wanted. You weren't trying to get attention in that way. You just wanted to feel more feminine. And it turns into something that is not that. So I decided to get a fat transfer, and I work with a lot of amazing surgeons in this space, and have helped a lot of women through that same procedure, just to restore a little bit of volume and to address the adhesions and just create a uniform shape. Because when you have no breast tissue at all, like I had, it's can be similar to a mastectomy in that you have such severe adhesions and scar tissue and a scar matrix that there is no movement there. It can be uncomfortable. And so fat transfer is the best way to address that. But a lot of women do have some breast tissue, and they're able to do a lift at the time of explant and restore a youthful appearance in that way. And it's not everyone is as extreme a case as I was post explant. But to answer your question, I went from I didn't care what I looked like afterwards, because I didn't feel like I was dying anymore. And I was so excited to participate in life again, and to be able to walk in the sun and feel energized and not need naps all day, and to be able to go to my son's soccer games. And so that became just so fulfilling and wonderful to me. And then a few years later, I was like, I think I'm ready to fix the areas that are causing me issue. And so I decided to do a fat transfer, and then that helped with that. But I've got I think that you have to do. I'm grateful for those 2 years because I did a lot of inner work and emotional work of realizing I am not my breasts, and this does not determine my value. And I had to really disconnect and um, dissect why that had affected me so much for so many years. And I'm grateful for that time. And again, having worked with a lot of women through that same story, they share the same thing, even though it was a really hard time. But you get back in tune with the fact that, hey, I'm a spiritual being. This is just my house, and once I got that through, that message through to myself, then I was like, sure, I want to fix this. It's not about having large breasts. It's more of just fixing um, an area that was painful physically
Right.
because of the adhesions.
Right. So kind of building off of that, did your, I mean, I'm still fascinated that your path to recovery all started with a divine intervention. And I wonder if that, or how did that um, maybe change your relationship with God or your perspective on spirituality itself?
Yeah. Well, I already had a good relationship with God, and what it did more than anything for me was realize that, one, they're always with us. We always have spiritual guidance and communion in a way. Like, I felt so alone, and I realized that I'm not alone. I just can't always audibly hear, but it created and opened up in me something where I have so much more access to my intuitive gifts, which I wouldn't say mine. We all have them. Just the ability to trust that inner knowing, to really listen to that. I kind of grew up a people pleaser, and feeling like even when something didn't feel right to me, that I don't want to hurt this person's feelings, or I, need to make sure that I'm always agreeable, and realizing that a lot of times the messages that I was getting in my body of saying this is not safe, or you need to listen to this gut feeling. I don't even question that anymore. I immediately go with that, and it's literally why I reached out to you, is because certain products and certain people will be things where it's like you're supposed to have a relationship with these people or this product, or this is something that's important in the path that you are on. And they just, the only word I can say is resonate. They just resonate with me so much, where I just know, okay, I have to pursue this because this is important in what I am supposed to do. And what I realized also as to why it was so important for it to be an audible voice, and the only time I've ever heard one, is because this is directly tied to what I am supposed to do with my life. And the people and the incredible experiences that have come into my ether since then, of how to continue to help this group of women, has been, I can only describe as miraculous. Because I'm, just a couple nights ago, sitting at a table of just brilliant scientists and doctors and PhDs who all wanted to hear what I'm doing and how they can help, and how we can create cohort studies and specific testing and protocols, and people that are just brilliant, who are wanting to come together for this purpose. And so that's what's been just humbling in this whole experience, and why I'm grateful that I had implants. It was part of my story here, my lesson, my earth lesson here, and then what I'm supposed to do moving forward to help others. So yeah, that's what I would say. And what is beautiful when women do decide, even if they're keeping their implants, but this happens a lot after they remove them, is you are so in tune with your body in a way that you never were before. And you see how the things you put into your body, even just from supplements or food, everything, you just have a hyper awareness of how it is interacting with your biology. And it's a really beautiful awareness that I don't think you would have gained if you hadn't experienced that. But it's also any type of illness. When you go through a really extreme illness and then you are able to come out on the other side, you have a new relationship with your body that I think is the beautiful gift in something that's so hard.
Well, your passion is infectious. So thank you again for what you're doing. I wonder if, just as we wrap up, maybe share a little bit about your experience with Igniton so far. I know you're maybe 4 to 6 weeks in, but
Yeah.
what can you share with our audience?
Yeah. Well, I started with the cognition and the one for inflammation. And immediately with the cognition, it's so interesting because now knowing what Igniton is, I felt like a light was on. Like when I take them in the morning, I feel like a light comes on in my mind. And just it's so interesting because usually with, things that are cognitive enhancers, it's more of a stimulant feeling, and it's
Mhm.
not that at all. It literally just feels like a light bulb over my head. I feel much more able to access the things that I need to do for my day. And then the one that I am really loving right now is the REM. I mean, I got almost 2 hours of REM last night.
Wow.
So, yeah, that one has been so incredible because 'cause I'm in perimenopause and I do all the things and I'm doing really well, but, because of the hormonal shifts and fluctuations, the thing that I notice the most, that is affected can be my sleep. And, as if I a lot of times I only need 1. If I know it's gonna be a more difficult night, I'll take 2, and it has been just the most blissful sleep. So that has been incredible. And also, I love skincare products. And I have been using the serum. And immediately I actually already wrote a review for the serum because it's so good. It's so good. I've been using it under my eyes, but I was using it on my cheeks and my forehead. And the hydration and just the bounce of my skin. I worked in the skincare space for quite some time and work with a lot of different technologies and more scientific formulations. And so I have a very good sense of when something is powerful. And the skin serum has been very, very surprisingly um, transformational in such a short time. So
Well, thank you for those kind words. I'm glad that it's all working out for you. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And I wonder if there's any last words you have for our audience as we wrap up. And first of all, we need to tell people how to find you and explore more of what you bring to the table.
yeah, so my uh, company's name, I have a website. It's Olistico Life, and that's also my social media, is Olistico Life. So it's holistic life, but in Italian. Um, and so that's the best way to find me in that way. My book is on Amazon. It's just called The Explant Book. And I worked as a patient advocate for several years attending surgeries, and it's just a step-by-step guide from a patient advocate standpoint. And I also had a functional PA add in some of more of the protocols pre and post op to help there. Um, and then just final words, you know, in all of this, I want women to know that they already know. I feel like if I had been able to really tap in all of those years, instead of looking to all of the doctors for answers and really gone inside, I would have been able to tap into that. But I feel like we've just grown in a world where we feel like someone else knows better. And the answers are truly inside us if we take the time to listen and to look and to pray and to meditate and to just take that quiet time to connect with the divine. That's where you'll find those answers.
Well said. Candice Barley, OlisticoLife.com, and on social media at Olistico Life. Thank you so much, Candice. Please hang on as we wrap. Thank you.
Thank you.
Imagine if you could go back to the early days of companies like Apple, Tesla, or SpaceX, not because of the products they were selling at the time, but because you believed in the future they were trying to build. That's what Igniton is all about. Yes, today we create premium wellness products designed to support cognition, longevity, and restorative sleep and skin. And they're all backed by carefully selected ingredients and supported by clinical research. But for us, they're only the beginning. At Igniton, we believe the future of human wellness will be shaped not only by chemistry, but by a deeper understanding of how living systems organize, communicate, and maintain coherence. We're investing in the science, the research, and the technologies that could one day expand how we think about recovery, performance, and healthy aging. Every bottle we ship today helps fund that journey. When you choose Igni Cognition, Igni Longevity, Igni REM Sleep, or Igni Peptide Eye Serum, you're not simply buying a supplement. You're joining a community that believes the next great frontier in wellness is still waiting to be discovered. Some companies sell products, others build the future. We intend to do both. Learn more about Igniton's mission, explore the science, and become part of the Igniton community at igniton.com by using code ASHLEY to save 15% on your first purchase. That's igniton.com and code ASHLEY for 15% off without a subscription. Igniton is building the future of quantum wellness. Igniton, born from light, backed by science.
Thanks for listening to the Biohacking Standards, the foundations and fundamentals for a better you.